Hello. Welcome back to Spoil Your Baby. I'm Dr. Greer Kirshenbaum, and today we're diving into one of the more challenging aspects of responsive parenting. What happens when the people around you, your mother-in-law, your aunt, your friends, your social media, start criticizing your nurturing approach? Having a nurturing approach, going full out and spoiling your baby, using your intuition in your parenting is not the norm. You could be the only one you know practicing parenting this way. And it's not just a little bit different than the normal, typical mainstream parenting out there. It's very different. And you're going to hear some criticism likely. Even in my world where everyone around me knew my background, my passions, my teachings, I still received this. I still had the don't spoil your baby in my head. And I still got questions and criticisms about the way I was raising my son. Now that he's 6, we're all seeing how unbelievable the care was he got in early life and how it really, really built my son to be the most incredible, resilient, friendly, sweet, emotional, empathetic child who does well in school and has tons of friends and just is the happiest little guy. But in the early days, when people criticize and ask questions and maybe sometimes just don't understand what you're doing, they've never seen it, they will say things to you. So one recent phrase I've heard from a client was their mother-in-law said to them, well, if you're responding to your baby every time they cry, you're just making your life harder. Another one that I hear quite frequently from my clients is people calling them around the clock, reminding them and not letting it go, saying, I hope you're not holding your baby too much. You were holding your baby the whole time I saw you. You have to stop. Stop holding your baby. Please stop. Stop. And another one that I heard as well, since my son actually needed me to hold him for naps in order for him to feel safe enough to sleep, was your baby doesn't need you for every nap. You don't need to do that. So just, all these comments in that world of you're doing too much. You're, in the UK, they'll say you're making a rod for yourself or a rod for your back. You're just doing too much. Stop it. These comments aren't just annoying, which they are. I really found them I felt attacked by them. I felt like someone was piercing something through my heart, telling me, don't believe your intuition. Don't believe your heart. Don't believe your baby. They really felt painful to me. But it's also important to understand that they're also deeply rooted in a generational misunderstanding of infant care. As I said, the way our society treats babies is very disconnected, very controlling, and all with the mind, all with what's the schedule, what's the plan, how do I manage this baby, how do I control this baby's behavior or shape this baby's behavior or make them behave or make them act good or sleep good or be good. So that's where people are coming from. But there's something profound I've learned through my research and personal experience. When someone criticizes our nurturing approach, it's really not about you or your baby. That tender way you're caring for them, it's not, they don't really want to be attacking you or hurting you whatsoever. They're really, really trying to help. Really what it's about is that person's own unhealed wounds. So when you are responding consistently and lovingly to your baby, something miraculous happens. It's beautiful. You're connected. There's synergy. Your brain waves are connected on the same way. Your body movements are connected. You're in your own little bubble of love and togetherness. Mothers and babies are one biological unit. And when they're able to flow that way, it's beautiful. It's miraculous. It's probably, I can't think of anything more beautiful on earth. But for some people, this beauty triggers something very painful. And it's typically one of two things. One is that they did not receive that care as a baby. And while we don't have autobiographical memory of our infancy, which we'll talk about in a future episode, we do have implicit memory of our own infancies. And so if we don't have that memory of being cared for that way, when we see it in another, we witness it, that can bring up deep pain, the deepest pain, which is more evidence as to why it is so important to be so loving of our babies during this time. The other thing that can happen is that that person was a mother or father who was told to ignore their baby's cries. They were under the spell of don't spoil your baby. They were taught that being responsive is weak, that it will hurt their baby, that it will make their baby dependent and anxious and all these horrible things. So when someone sees you truly listening to your baby, truly responding, truly connected, truly this one organism together, something inside of them breaks open. A wound breaks open. It's pain. It is pain. When someone witnesses responsive parenting after either experiencing disconnected parenting themselves or having been engaged in disconnected parenting with their own child, they're confronted with what they missed. Their nervous system remembers the loneliness, the unmet needs, the silence. If it's their own child, perhaps regret, perhaps an experience of having to harden their heart, of betraying themselves, of not being their authentic self. Some people just really didn't receive this primal care that they needed as infants. This care is so important. Sometimes I talk about it as a meal that can only be eaten in infancy. And if we don't eat this meal in infancy, if it's not served to us to eat this love, this care, this connection in infancy, we are starving for it for the rest of our lives, in every interaction we have, in every relationship we have, in every grade in school, in our work, in our personal life, in our relationship with ourselves and our spirituality and our communities. It is just so vital that babies get this primal care, that they get this necessary meal. So most people who received care like this or who gave care like this were following the mainstream baby advice at the time. And seeing you break the cycle, seeing a crack in this super harmful, don't spoil your baby world. It's like holding up a mirror to an unhealed wound. Or maybe it's like sticking a finger in an unhealed wound or throwing, something uncomfortable into it, right? It's so painful, so painful. So when someone challenges your nurturing approach, there's a few things you can say. I'll offer a longer kind of script today that combines some science, some compassion, and some firm boundaries. And you can piece it together, little bits that you'd like to say. Sometimes people want to just say a tiny little phrase like, I see that you care for us. Thank you. I got this. Things have changed a little bit. Babies haven't changed, but the way we treat babies has changed. And, I know what I'm doing. I've done my research. But here's a longer one that kind of addresses everything that we brought up today. So let's say someone says to you, oh, you are just making your life so much harder. You have to start ignoring your baby. You have to start leaving your baby in a bassinet to cry. You have to. This is not good for you. You can't do this. And people say that all the time. That might sound shocking, but I hear it at least once a week, many, many times, sometimes a week. So we can say something like, I see that something's coming up for you with the way that I'm responding to my baby. And I understand this is probably not how you were taught to parent. You might not have ever seen anyone doing it like this before. The information you received warned you don't spoil your baby with love. But we actually know differently now. Science shows us that responsive, loving care is how babies' brains develop best. What I'm doing isn't just comfortable for my baby right now. It's highly protective. It's building neural pathways for lifelong mental health, for emotional regulation, for resilience. I so appreciate you expressing concern. It tells me that you care about me and my baby so much, and I'm so lucky to have that care, that loving care from you. And I'm also fully informed about what I'm doing. So if I know you're here for us. Here's how you can help. Here's a way to help. You could get me a glass of water. You could order me a meal next week. You could come over and hold my baby while I'm showering. You could get me a massage. You could pick up my dog from the groomer. There's so many things that people can do to help. And we can detract. So that was a long phrase, but take pieces from it. Like I said, you can do little ones. You can do little bits and pieces and figure out your way. The easiest thing you can also do is just say, okay, thanks. Because people really are wanting to help, but they are also wounded at the same time. So to anyone who is feeling triggered by my words, just know you truly did the best you could with that information that you had. You loved your baby. You listened to the experts. You listened to your doctor. You listened maybe to other people in your family. And every generation learns and grows and heals. We're not the first generation with this knowledge, but we are the first generation with the neuroscience research to really, truly show us how impactful spoiling our babies is in these first 3 years of life, and how impactful ditching this don't spoil your baby narrative can be. And we really are changing this generation. There's a new generation of babies right now, all the babies of the nurture revolution, all the babies whose parents are saying, I'm spoiling my baby. We are creating beautiful new world for our children through growing their brains this way. And what we're doing isn't just parenting. We're healing generations. We're healing those wounds of our mother-in-law and our mother and our grandparents if they also fell under this spell. We're healing their anxiety, their trauma, their experiences in wars and immigration and displacement and all kinds of traumas. We're rewriting the script of how humans care for their most vulnerable members. We have to move away from disconnected care. Every time you respond to your baby's cry, you're not just soothing your infant in that moment. You are building the brain they are going to have for the rest of their life. You are writing their future. You are building trust in other people. You are building empathy. You're creating neural pathways of safety, of feeling good enough, of feeling seen. You're teaching them that their emotions are important information, that they're valid, that they are loved unconditionally. And we're breaking cycles of emotional disconnection that are the seed of so much unnecessary suffering in the world. In my own journey, I've learned that compassion extends in all directions. Compassion for the baby, compassion for the parents, compassion for those whose pain makes them resistant to change. And if we do have compassion for people who are criticizing our parenting, we get to heal them a little bit too. And we invite them in and they get to see this new way in a loving, with loving, welcoming arms. So that is our episode for today. I'm so happy you've been here. Next time, I'm going to be joined by Dr. Rocio Zunini, and we are going to talk about some big myths. So join me next time, and I will see you then.